Hey, everybody. I think I am good to go. Please let me know if you can hear me okay. I think we are good for this Free Tip Friday. So we're just going to erase that unfortunate memory uh, right out of our minds. And we're back. But you know what? I will tell you. Going live is not for the faint of heart, kids. And we love teaching you so much that a little bit of a technical glitch is not going to stop me. So, back to it. So, as you know, yesterday we had our Knotpendium videos come up for you guys. Two short little videos, one on the flat square knot and one on the snake knot. And you can find them over on our YouTube playlist. It's Knots for Jewelry Making over on beadshop.com. You can find that. Super helpful, I think. And so many of you have emailed and told me you like these little short kind of little tutorial snippets, little tidbits. So we have more of those planned for you. But I thought that today I would put those two knots together. And as on that unfortunate broadcast that I'm going to go back and delete, you saw that doing that snake knot in a double didn't really work so much. So that's okay. We'll do it. We'll take it from the top again. Okay, so let me show you what I've got. We're going to combine these two, and let me show you here what we've got going on. Let me straighten my camera though here. Bear with me here for just a moment while I do that. There we go. So what I'm going to use, and we talked a little bit about the leather and the leather cord that you can use, right? The leather cord, you can see I've got some varieties here from the sample knots that I have strung up. So I've got this a little bit of a repeat, but stay with me here because I want all of this information to be here on this video. This is the 1mm here that I did with this snake. This is the 1.5 here, and this is the 2mm. So you can see, however you tie these knots with leather, the look is going to be a little bit different, right? Depending on the size of leather that you use. Now, I'm going to use, this is 1.5mm, this one here. And the 1.5mm, it's kind of a good middle of the road to tie with. You can see also a few of you mentioned how much you liked this silk wrapping with this. Okay. And the silk wrapping I used a 0.5mm. I used it, just the 0.5mm Chinese knotting cord, which I like, right? But today instead, and you saw this on the video that we shall not discuss, that I put in these couple little flat square knots to get some visual interest because I wanted all of this to be leather. So I did this instead. I tried doing kind of knotting it with the double thread. It didn't really work so well. So we're going to not do it double. But you can play around with doing double cords with some of these. It might look kind of interesting. So this could be a silk wrap. This could be a crimp. This could be macrame like I did here. But however you do it, you want to connect it to some kind of a button. And this button here, this is the concho button in copper. And I've cut myself about 2 yards of this distressed brown. So I'm going to connect it to my board here. So I've got some nice, a nice connection, a nice surface for me to work with. And what I did was I did that flat macrame, just like we do regularly flat macrame, right over left, left over right, going from the left to the right. And I used some zap glue to glue those down. And so now it's really sat for a while, so it's in good shape. So I'm going to start out, because we've got a short amount of real estate when you do a leather bracelet like this, right? So we want to come in, and I didn't want too much of this to go on, so I want to start that snake knot pretty quickly. And so I also realized what I was doing wrong when I was doing this snake knot. We want to go through the loop, not just behind, but through. And you can consult the Knotpendium video that I did on this for a little more of a step-by-step process on this. I'm going to tell you what the step-by-step is, but let me just tie one to get it established here. There we go. So we start with our right cord and we flip it up, and then we come from behind, but we go up through that window. And that was the step that I was forgetting. Then I go in front of all of this, behind my bracelet. And see, there's that little window on this side here. And I tighten. Okay. And here we go. And so you want to make these snake knots. I'm going to go a little more at Kate speed for this, but I think that this snake knot, or even this combination of this flat macrame and the snake knot, kind of could make your wrap bracelets kind of an interesting, give it kind of an interesting beginning. So see, if I were going to do a wrap like this, and I would start my laddering or whatever I was going to do here, ladder or I don't know, right, or infinity stitch or whatever. Then I've got a nice space here to accommodate. Let's see if I've got some. These are 6mm that I used for something. But see how it gives you that space already, right? Ready to go. So look at how pretty just doing some laddering with those 6mm rounds. These are our glass drucks. How nice those would look. Okay. And you can find, of course, all the leather and all the different stuff that we carry right on Bead Shop. You could also use, just doing a little bit of designing here before I go into my next wrap, but that's kind of what these Friday broadcasts, a lot of them are all about, is kind of tossing ideas around. These 6mm that I have here, look at how nice that evolve crimp bead looks with that, right? So I could do an evolve. Now I've got some 4mm drucks here, and you could stack those. So you could make a wrap that's just completely the round beads. This doesn't want to stay to the side, so I'll put it there. But you can see laddering with those 4mm. These were from my, I don't know which project, maybe 2 or 3 projects ago. But see how those could put in, right? And as John is saying, yeah, you wouldn't have to taper, because see how that bead just fits. This knot has kind of done the tapering for you. Then look at how pretty those 4 would look. You can also, I've got a couple of those 3mm left from the earring, the duster earring project that I used. So that would look pretty interesting, I think, right? I'm going to continue on with the knotting portion of this because it's not a ladder kind of situation. Janice is asking where I would glue. You know, Janice is asking about this gluing here. You know, I don't think I would actually, JP, because the leather, if you look at this knot, the leather binds to itself pretty well here. So I don't think that we need to actually put any glue there. You could, but you also want this piece to kind of remain fairly supple. Attaching the thread, though, if I were laddering, where I might do it is I might bring my thread, like if I were doing infinity stitch, I might like tie my thread on, maybe on the inside there between the knots, tie like this, maybe do a drop of glue there, and then bring my needle through and then start my laddering or my infinity stitching. If I were doing laddering, I probably would, I might even bring, I don't know, I might actually just start my laddering here so I had these tails out like this, and then after my laddering was established, weave these tails back in through the snake knot there. That's what I'd do, probably. And then this size leather, the leather that's going through the button, this is a 1.5 millimeter. And the thing when you're tying these knots, you don't want your tension to be off. So I have a tendency sometimes after I start to tie these knots to pull them super tight, right? But you don't want to pull them super tight. You just want to make them an even amount of tension over, back behind the bracelet, and up through this loop. Okay, so I've tied 5 of these. Now, again, I'm creating this on the fly, no surprise. So I need to think about like what this length, am I going to repeat this length on the other end here, right? So let me measure and see how much length I've used so far. So let me do that with this. I've got my millimeter gauge. So from that loop, it's almost maybe it's almost about 1.25 inches, right? So I know that at the end, I'm going to need about 1.25 inches plus the loop. So I think maybe for this section, well, let's see what happens, how many I want to tie. So let's go ahead and clamp this to the board like so. Okay. And now we're going to do this flat square knot. There's a question here that Beverly has that's a good question. Would it be wise to silk wrap or something else to the loop that goes through the button shank? I worry that that loop will break. You know, this is a 1.5 millimeter leather. I put this leather through button shanks, Beverly, all the time, and I don't really have an issue with it. If you were doing something that was thinner, then sure, you could definitely silk wrap or wrap something around to go through, but I don't think you're going to have trouble, especially if, I wanted to show you this, there's enough room here for that loop to move around. If it's super tight like this, then that button shank's going to rub against that leather and you might have a little bit of an issue. Okay, so let's put this back and let's start that square knot. So the square knot, it differs from this macrame, the flat macrame knot that we do. Okay, it has a similar look, but we're not knotting it over a base. We're just knotting. Okay, so we're going to go right from this snake knot into that flat macrame, and we'll see how it looks. We may want to come back and put like some kind of this is the evolve bead to make that transition, but I want to see what it looks like from this knot to another knot. So all you do with this one is you tie right over left and up, and left over right and up. You're just making a series of square knots. Let me do a couple. Right over left. And then let's examine it and see what it looks like. Left over right. So you can see here, I don't know if I love the transition without anything going in between. So let's take this out. I think that the cleanest way, and since I have these evolved beads here, there's that last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that last snake knot. I could silk wrap it too, right? I could get that silk wrap there. But since I have that evolve, let me see what that looks like. And let's tie the knot. Right over left. And when you make this first square knot, you want it to be nice and even, and then left over right. Yeah, isn't that better? Don't you think that's better? Right over left. Let me do this a little more at Kate speed. Left over right. And plus it adds some visual interest, and it brings that copper down into the bracelet. Now if you stop and you go, wait a minute, what was I doing here? You tie the loop on the opposite end of that little crescent, so I'm on a left over right. But just have that mantra in your head, right over left. And it kind of looks like a knit stitch, which I like because, as you know, I like to knit. And see how it's nice and tight there, here? So it's giving me some tension. So the knotting is coming out pretty nice and evenly. And that's what you want to go for. This again, it's the 1.5 millimeter leather. I think this would also look nice in the 2 mil. There's the 2 millimeter one next to it. You can see it's a little different. But sometimes you just have to, you know, practice and see what works and what doesn't. But this would also be a really nice section, and it goes fast. That's the thing. I don't know if you're like me, but when I am making a wrap bracelet, sometimes it feels like that darn thing is going to go on forever, right? And you want a section that is short. So let's measure and see where we are. Sometimes like this, when I'm here, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to wrap this around. You can see if I kind of put that there, and this is just how I do it, and I know that I'm going to have to stop there and my loop will go there. So I've got about this much left that needs knots, right? So I'll bring this in half. It's my very scientific method, right? So I know I'm going to need about maybe with knots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe I'm going to knot 5 more and see what it looks like. Okay, but once you make one, right, this would make a great Father's Day gift for sure. We've got a, you know, the button that would also look really good with this is our button. I think we call it the Bali button. In silver, it would look really good with this. And the black leather cord, you could pop up and do it in a 2mm. It would look great. Also really good for summer, kind of fast. And you know, it's a good way so that you can practice these knots and have something that you can actually utilize later. Right over left. That's where I am. Left over right. Just because I'm going fast doesn't mean I need to sacrifice that tension. Left over right. And right over left. And I'm going to do one more. Whoops, that wasn't right. I can see that that knot was incorrect. That was a left over right. There we go. One last one. Let me go ahead and measure this one more time. So yeah, I think it's time to put in that evolve, because that'll give me, that will take me up to about 5 inches. So let's go ahead and put that one in. Kim was saying that this would look nice with a connector or a focal in the center, and it definitely would. You can do a slider here in the middle. I haven't really explored too much about adding a bead on these little loops there, but that I think would look good. So, and you can see that I haven't crimped these down. I'm just leaving them kind of, you know, so they're kind of loose, so they've got some movement to them. This flat square knot, when I was practicing the snake knot, because it was a request for a customer, she was like, how do we do that? So I was playing around trying to remember how I did it. And I just started doing a series of these flat knots, and I loved how it looked. I just thought it was really kind of cool. And Janice also brought up, you can do this with surfer cord. The cord is cotton, so it would look great in that 1.5mm surfer cord. It would be good for that as well. So let's do, I need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more snake knots. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of connect it here to my board. I could go the long way too, but I'm just going to kind of connect it like this with my little clamp. So I've got this nice and tight. And come up and make my loop. I have to switch gears between these two knots. So I go up through, I go over, I go behind the bracelet. And I'm going a little quickly, but you can consult our Knotpendium and see there, I can see that my 2 loops are good to go. And down. Okay. And here. Oh, polyester. Sorry, I did mean that. You know, we did used to sell some cord that was like it in cotton, and I always get that mixed up. So, but the surfer cord is great. It is a great non-leather alternative. So thanks for the heads up on that. So here's the second one. The third one, loop that up, come through the knot, come around back, come through, and tighten. Sometimes I'll tighten the right side and then the left side. It's a little, you know, the leather cord is a little sticky, which is great for keeping the knot. It's great for keeping the knot tight, but sometimes it's hard to get it symmetrical. There we go. And over everything, back behind the knot, and then up again through that loop. One, two, three, four. One last one. Come on, come through. And over. Alrighty. So there's 5. Let's go ahead and measure this so I can see how I want to close it. Yep, that looks good. So I am about at 6 inches for this, which is about right because I'm going to need about an inch for closure. Okay, so I think to make this symmetrical, let's go ahead and do that square knot here at the end. Okay, just for fun. I don't want to squeeze that leather with this clamp, so I'm going to do it this way. And I'm going to clamp these on the other side so that they're nice, so I've got tension there. And let me get my piece. This is, again, that 1 millimeter cording, leather cord. And I'm just going to come in and tie, whoops, let me find the center. Do that again. Find the center of that cord, bring it up. I don't know, this length, you're asking what length of leather, I'll tell you. It's about 16 inches. Just a scrap that I had sitting on the table. Find that center. Now again, that flat macrame knot, it's in our learning section over on Bead Shop. But you just start tying the knot. Make that loop over the tail, under the center, and out and up through that loop. So there's one full one. I think I just did 2 pair. So there's that one, and we'll finish it on this side. Now when I glue it, let's get our gluing stuff back here. I'm going to add a little bit of my glue there. These will be great, like fast gifts, fast summer gifts, right? You can also put a charm or something in here too, right? The world is your knotted leather oyster on this, right? I added a little bit of glue there, a little bit of glue there, and this is zap, so it's gonna dry pretty quickly. And see how I put a little bit there. Okay, now we're going to tighten it and see all of that glue kind of comes in and sits where it's supposed to. I'm going to get rid of any spare glue that might be around. And yeah, I don't want to crimp, like I clamped the leather, Leslie, on the board on this side. This is where I clamped it. It didn't really kink, but I don't want to leave it clamped for a long period of time. You could also use like a little, I don't know, a little scrap of fabric or something in between your clamp and your leather to kind of help it, you know, help it kind of not mark anything. If I feel like I need just a touch more glue back there, I can do it. Okay. Now I'll let this sit for just a second. Then I can decide. I'll wrap it around. This is where you can kind of measure it to see So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this in a knot here at the end, and then I'll leave my opening for my button, and I'll tie a knot at that end, just so it's kind of symmetrical for the closure. This is about set. If this weren't a fast demo that I was doing, I would go ahead and kind of let that sit. But I think that is good to go. And that little end, I think I've got something here. I've got a collection of Sharpie markers. I don't know if you love a Sharpie marker as much as I do, but I've got a little brown Sharpie, and you can see right here, I can just come in and color that. You could try different cords to make it more delicate. Nancy was asking about the colors, of the types of cords you could use. You could use some thinner cords held double, and I think it would work. You could try 8.8 millimeter Chinese knotting cord, which I think would work nicely. But try it. There's no harm in experimenting. Today's whole broadcast was one big experiment. Also, before I knot this, I like how these evolves are sitting, but I feel like I want that to be crimped. Okay, so I'm going to crimp them closed now that I know that the length is about right. And I'll come in. Parallel pliers are great for this. My parallel pliers still aren't sitting here where I'm doing this work, so I'm going to use you can use your bent chain or your regular chain nose, which I have here. I can come in and I'm going to go ahead so that this won't turn. I want to make sure that my cords are flat and they're centered. Maybe I'll use my straight. And really gently, see how I'm holding this? I don't want to smash things too tightly, but I'm going to come in. I'm going to get it almost to the end of that plier. I'm helping my hands to close this by holding onto the tips of the plier as well and crimping it down. There we go. And then I can turn it again, give it another crimp gently, right? We don't want to be too heavy-handed. But there we go, like so. So those are all crimped and ready. So now I'm going to do this one. So it feels like it's all one piece. You don't have to crimp them. You could also glue them in place if you wanted to glue them on. You could also try I use the Evolves because that's what I had here, and I liked the look of the width of the Evolve, but you could also use what we call transitions, which are a little narrower. That would work as well. So now I'm going to tie this overhand. You've seen me do that before. But I think that the two overhands, the overhand knot that finishes it here, it also adds just a touch more length. But I think that having it look symmetrical that way is nice. And then I'm going to figure I need about this much. And I'm not going to tie this too tight yet until I check the size. Like that. I think that's a little loose. So I'll walk that knot down. Then let's try it on. These knots have a little bit of give or a little bit of stretch to them. So see if I can get this on my wrist. Yeah. There we go. And see how if you pull it It'll stretch a little bit too. Okay. And when I was crimping or flattening these, I just want to mention here, you want to make sure that you're using pliers that have smooth jaws. These are nice jewelry making pliers. And also remember how I went back and forth, like I squeezed on one hand and then flipped it and squeezed again, and then flipped it and squeeze again. You don't want to squeeze it so tightly that you're going to mar the finish on these crimps, right? The plating on these tiara cast crimps are really nice. It's really nice heavy plating, but if you abrade them with a tool that has, you know, some marks on the inside of it, you're going to really mark these crimps. Okay, so just be aware of that. So now that that's correct, I'm going to tighten this up, and I'm going to see if I have, I do. Look at this. Let's add just a little bit of flare at the end. Since this is 0.5 millimeter, I'm going to come in and put just a couple of little copper shadow beads on there. It's those little touches, that little bit of flair sometimes that then really tighten that up. Give that a side cut. You can color that marker. This brown marker's a little dark, but I don't mind it. Makes it look kind of finished. I put 2 on one side, so I'm just going to put 1 on the other. Tighten it up. I don't want them to be the same length. I want them to be just slightly offset. Be careful not to clip yourself. And here we have it. Not bad for a 2 little knot piece, but see how nice and symmetrical those knots look? These knots look. These pieces came right where they should. Not too bad, right? So use this as you may, right? You can use it in a wrap bracelet. Like this whole section could just be a wrap bracelet section, and then you could continue on with laddering or whatever. But it's a nice, quick, easy, I think, if you like a piece that has a little more of an edge to it, or you want to make something that has a scale that's a little bit larger. Like Janice said, I think it's a handsome bracelet. I think it's a good one. You know, a lot of people now are wearing, well, they always have, but like really simple bracelets that are just like the 6 millimeter beads that are strung on like stretch cord, right? So you can make a few of those like with our drucks, with the round druck beads. You could use like the round semi-precious, right? And make a few stacks of those, right? And then pair it with one of these guys here, and you'd have a really kind of interesting looking stack for that. But I think this is good. I'm looking around for what else I might pair with it. You could, I also have just a bunch of like random, in this bag of things here, some random pieces from our tribal beads section. You could string a few of those onto some leather cord and stack it up that way. So I think you have a real kind of a good focal bracelet here for your stack of more simple beads. So I urge you this weekend, you guys, go in and get creative with some knots. Check out the Knotpendium. Get yourself a variety of leather cords, right? Do some little short little sections of practice and then see where that techniques lead you. I'm pretty happy with this. It'll be a fun one to add to a stack, especially for summer. And thanks again, you guys. I really valued how much you guys loved our fringed seed bead earring. You can see that on our Wednesday broadcast from this week. Several of you emailed in and emailed me your samples, your pieces that you have made already. So thank you so much for that. It really means a lot for you to share those finished pieces with me. I love seeing them. So you can find us, as always, on our social media, you guys, on Instagram at beadshop.com. If you do make a piece with Bead Shop products or a Bead Shop project, go ahead and give us a tag or an @ and we'll love to add it to our stories. You can join us over on the Bead Table on Facebook. Our Facebook group is going strong over there. And of course, you can like and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. I'm also broadcasting out to my Kate Richburg YouTube channel today. And I'd love it if you'd go and give me a follow over there. You know, my studio here at home is starting to evolve, and I hope to be back to some fun metalsmithing tutorials too, for those of you who love metalsmithing content, in addition to all of this beading content that we put out over on Bead Shop. And of course, if you enjoyed this project today, we really appreciate you guys watching. You can find all of the information on the project and the products from today's broadcast right on our website. Do sign up for our newsletter for the latest discounts, giveaways, and new products. May is so chock full of really great things that we're launching for you. And we've got some fun things coming down the pike that you're not going to want to miss. So next week, you guys, I have Janice with me. We're going to be on together. She's made a beautiful wrap bracelet that we're going to talk about. She's going to share some of her seeds of wisdom about laddering. I think you're really going to love it. She uses some larger beads in there, some round beads, and you can always throw a snake knot or two in there as well to embellish it for your own, to throw in a little bit of your own design. So thank you so much. I wanted to wish a happy Mother's Day, especially to my mom who's out there watching. Gwenda, happy Mother's Day to you, the best mom in the world. But also I know many of you are celebrating this weekend. Our moms, or have moms that have gone before them, or mom figures. But wherever those moms are in your life, whether you're a mom or not, or a cat mom like I am, it is time to celebrate those figures, all of those matrons who have gone before us in our bloodlines and in our ancestors. So a happy and heartfelt Mother's Day to those of you who are going to celebrate. And those of you who have just great mom memories or matronly, wonderful figures in your lives, will take a moment and pause and think of them as well. So have a fantastic weekend, all you all, and I will see you on Wednesday with Janice. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.